So we are hearing now that the U.S. Senate will begin voting in the next hour on a resolution to end this government shutdown, and it couldn't come fast enough for millions of Americans who rely on federal food assistance. Funding for the so-called SNAP program, as it's known, is now in legal limbo. The Trump administration told the Supreme Court that it will fight a court order to pay for it through emergency funds. It is also trying to undo any payments made to the states as a result of that ruling. And that effort is now the subject of a lower court hearing. Joel Berg is the CEO of Hunger Free America, and he joins us now. I mean, just reading through this, it's chaotic. I can't imagine not only what you're going through, but what the people themselves are going through. Families that are trying to feed their children on this, elderly people who are on a fixed income. So let us know, what is the actual state of affairs now when you put together what's going on with the shutdown, but also these court rulings?
It's chaos, confusion, panic, and pain. There are 42 million Americans who rely on the SNAP program to put groceries in their shopping carts. That's mostly low-paid workers, children, seniors, active duty military families, people with disabilities, older Americans and veterans. And the court chaos was forced by the Trump administration. They've lost in 2 district courts. They've lost in an appeals court. So rather than just giving food to hungry Americans, they're appealing to the Supreme Court. And now there's more chaos about whether the government shutdown is finally going to end. And if it ends without any improvements in health care for tens of millions of Americans, you've got to ask, what was the point?
So, and we're going to get to that in a moment, but I want to ask you right now, this hour, depending on the state you're in, you were supposed to get some of those emergency funds. Some have and some haven't. And did anyone get 100% of what they were entitled to in November?
I think in some states, people did get 100% of what they were entitled to. Some states, people have gotten none. Some states, people have gotten partial payments. Some states, some people have gotten it, some haven't, based on something as arbitrary as their case number or their last name. You know, the 14th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution says we're supposed to have equal protection of all Americans in all states. And this is clearly a violation of that dictate by saying just by the luck of the draw, you might be getting food aid from your federal government or you might not.
Do you believe the Trump administration is weaponizing food on purpose?
They've absolutely weaponized food. First of all, President Trump has repeatedly lied about the program, implied that everyone who needs help from SNAP is a Democrat, when in fact states like West Virginia and Oklahoma and Louisiana, solidly red states, 15% of the population or more in those states rely on SNAP. The Trump administration isn't even disputing whether it has the power or money to make full SNAP payments. They're just saying that the courts can't force them to do something they already have the power to do. So there's no question that this is purposeful on by the Trump administration. And I note in their first term, when there was a shutdown, they didn't do this.
Right. And so I do want to ask you then why this shutdown, you believe, America may be bearing too high a cost to actually end this shutdown. And I'm quoting you now. You're saying, or your organization, you say, we are truly flummoxed as to why some senators who kept voting for 6 weeks to keep the government shutdown, supposedly to force the GOP to agree to reduce massive health care premiums, you describe it as utterly caving at this point. You're not happy, even though it means that SNAP would be fully funded into next year.
Many low-income Americans supported this fight because they also understood that if tens of millions of Americans, including many of them, had to pay thousands of dollars or tens of thousands of dollars per year more in healthcare premiums, they'd have less money for food and be hungrier. So I understand fighting, including if there's significant short-term pain, for a serious solution to our healthcare crisis. I get that. I also get people who would have opposed the shutdown from the beginning, saying, oh my goodness, it's just not worth the cost to threaten food to 42 million Americans. What I don't get is 7 senators letting 42 million Americans get a significant delay in food. And the very reason they said they were forcing this pain, that they're dropping that demand on the promise that there may be a vote in one house when there's no promise of a vote, in the House of Representatives, just the Senate. And why came now? Just because, frankly, upper middle class people and wealthier people are having plane delays. It just seems absolutely nonsensical. If you were going to take on this fight, you needed to understand it was going to be a war, and you needed to fight the war till you win. And so it's really the worst of both worlds, having weeks and weeks of severe pain with no victory.
I think viewers are starting to get a sense then where you stand, because it was a bit confusing there at a point. But you're saying if you were going to do the shutdown, just go all the way and get something out of it. I do want to ask you a question about that, though. We just had Congressman Lloyd Doggett from Texas on, and he just told us that he doesn't believe that the House passing this thing, even if the Senate does, is a sure thing. Would you welcome that? Would you all actually welcome more days or weeks of this shutdown if you got those Affordable Care Act subsidies in place at the end of it?
Let me be clear, the shutdown needs to end immediately. It's unacceptable that 42 million Americans have gone without food payments. Our organization has programs on hold that we have to pay for out of our own pocket. Countless other programs are being hurt. VA hospitals have reduced staffing levels. This shutdown needs to end immediately, but it needs to end immediately in a way that also restores healthcare costs, makes healthcare costs more affordable for tens of millions of Americans. And the two are not somehow opposite. We can and should do both as a civilized country.
Joel Berg, we'll leave it there for now as we continue to watch where this vote goes in the Senate. Appreciate your time.